They weren't just looking at the bag. They were looking at the structural integrity, the scalability, and the technology behind it that allowed us to make it. So they want high performance, sustainable materials at an industrial scale. And the bag really proved that we can deliver the physical hardware, and now that we're scaling the software, as we call it, the programmable cells.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Dr. Che Connon. He is the CEO of BSF Enterprise. Che, very good to chat with you. For investors hearing about BSF for the first time, what problem are you solving? Why is tissue engineering the better answer?
Good morning, Stephen. BSF Enterprise, or Biosustainable Futures, is addressing a new area called industrial tissue engineering. So it's really a leader of the field and exploring and developing products that address multiple markets that are rooted in tissue engineering in a few different ways. And tissue engineering is the use of biological starting material, cells, to generate products. That can be from materials for fashion, as we'll touch upon, from medical devices, but also we're also involved in selling some of the tools that help others develop their own cells and tissues. What's really important, Stephen, is that I've been involved in tissue engineering since its inception over 20 years ago. And historically, and I know this firsthand, historically, tissue engineering was a slow, what we call empirical, so trial and error type of science. Scientists would be placing cells on a material and really hope that they grew into something usable. However, nowadays, just very recently, there's this convergence of artificial intelligence, robotics, and something we call engineering biology. This is being able to program and control cells. And this has turned biology into an information science. And we're no longer guessing, going back to that empirical, we're designing with a mathematical precision. We're combining that with the massive explosion in biological data, so genomic sequences, protein structures, cellular signaling pathways, means we can now use a predictive AI to model exactly how cells behave before they even hit the dish. So we are leading in this space to use all these combined technologies to create these tissues of the future for a variety of different purposes.
Che, you have three subsidiaries targeting very different markets. How do they connect, and where does this shared technology give you an edge?
They connect in our ability to use and develop these new tools, that combining of engineering, biology, AI, cell biology. So they connect. So we have the lab-grown leather is one of the companies we're talking about. So 3D Bio-Tissues and Kerato. So we'll start with 3D Bio-Tissues. So it's producing materials and tools that allow others to grow functional tissues. We've had a lot of success in the cultivated meat sector. The food industries, in terms of processing foods and growing and making new foods, has struggled a lot with the texture of these, what we call the cultivated alternatives. But by applying our data-driven cellular agriculture approach and working out what those cells need to create that texture, we've been deploying media additives such as City Mix and Cytoboost provide, and they help companies and our partnership companies such as Seawith in Korea reduce the cost of production as well as improving the performance of their product. In Kerato, it's again a tissue engineered premise, but in this case we are developing a medical device, and in this case we're using again information to direct those cells to form a cornea inside the body. And in this particular case, this is down to the material that's used to instruct those cells inside the body. So it allows a completely new cornea to be grown inside the body. That obviously reduces all those kind of costs associated with trying to grow them outside the body and everything else. So it's a much simpler approach to tissue repair of the cornea. And then lastly, with the lab-grown leather, this most recently with the T-Rex, this digital optimization of collagen, this structural protein in most tissues, skin, cornea, and many other organs, has allowed us to move beyond the traditional limits. And that's obviously resulted in this world's first cultivated T-Rex handbag, a luxury collector's piece. And by manipulating these cell-based structures computationally, we can manufacture this flawless 100% leather variants without harming a single animal, or requiring any of those kind of toxic components of the tanning process. And that's unlocks a multi-billion dollar ultra luxury fashion segment and other segments we can touch upon.
In fact, that T-Rex leather handbag generated huge global attention at the Paris auction last week, even though the reserve wasn't met at auction. What did the exercise actually prove about your advanced tissue engineering platform, and how has it changed the conversations you're having with potential commercial partners, Che?
Yeah, it's been a worldwide news item. Was fantastic. And the public auction we viewed it as a window to an entirely new material, an asset class. And whilst the public bidding stopped at 150,000 euros, the real commercial value was unlocked in this corporate interest that followed these tier one multi-billion dollar giants in sportswear and automobile design. They weren't just looking at the bag. They were looking at the structural integrity, the scalability, and the technology behind it that allowed us to make it. So they want high performance, sustainable materials at an industrial scale. And the bag really proved that we can deliver the physical hardware, and now that we're scaling the software, as we call it, the programmable cells.
In fact, you're in talks with a global sportswear brand and a tier one automotive manufacturer. How advanced are those discussions? What does a deal actually look like for BSF?
We are talking to them around, typically, it depends in the types of conversations. The designers are very much interested in what the T-Rex means and that kind of the marketing angle of T-Rex and how that can be used and leveraged. But they're also very much interested in the fact that the T-Rex isn't just a marketing gimmick. There's we've discovered some new biology in that collagen that it seems to be that the T-Rex was living under different environmental conditions and had to have a stronger skin. And so one of the interesting aspects of this whole approach is that we found out that the T-Rex collagen has a different structure, a higher lysine, it's called, an amino acid. And this is an important one for cross-linking and stability of tissues, resulting in a stronger tissue. So there's this combined story around the improved strength using engineering biology with T-Rex. And then you've got the materials, and then there's often the material scientists side. It tends to be a different conversation where their job is less about kind of seeing a bigger picture of what it can do, but really about what can it do today and where does it need to progress. So the conversations are typically around, okay, this is what you're doing today. We understand that this is a small scale. We understand that you have this process for scaling up. Are we able to input into the design elements of that material can we ask for different strengths? Can we ask for different colors, etc., etc.? So it's kind of setting out defining the programs of work, really.
What are the 2 or 3 milestones investors should be watching for over the next 12 months, Che?
I would say progress with the T-Rex leather in terms of some commercial deals. I would say veterinary clinical data from the Kerato company. That's a big inflection point for us, getting that positive veterinary data from the animals in that clinical trial. And then with 3D Bio-Tissues, I think we would look out for some really interesting strengthening of its position in the AI engineering biology area, and continue to develop its unique skill set in providing these cutting edge tools to make tools, new tools for others, new processes for others, in tissue engineering.
So I hope you'll keep us updated with progress on all of those fronts. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Dr. Che Connon, the CEO of BSF Enterprise.